Okay, let's set the scene. It's a Friday morning, late May 2019. Looks like any other day in New Canaan, Connecticut. Kids getting dropped off at school.
Right, just completely ordinary.
Except it wasn't. For Jennifer Dulos, a mother of 5, that morning routine was the last time things were normal. Hours later, she just vanished.
Yeah, gone. Her SUV found empty, abandoned,
Yeah.
and then the discovery of blood. It turned chilling very fast.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. This isn't just a standard missing person story. It's really this tangled web of privilege, immense wealth, power dynamics, and a truly bitter custody fight that seems to have just spiraled tragically out of control.
Absolutely.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack all those layers. We're going through the sources you've shared, pulling out the key facts, the context, everything we need to understand, not just what happened, but why, and what questions are still hanging out there.
And it is pretty remarkable, isn't it?
Mm.
How fast this went from missing person to a full-blown homicide investigation,
Mm-hmm.
even without finding Jennifer herself.
Yeah, that speed is telling.
The blood found in her garage, that immediate focus,
Mm.
it suggests investigators maybe already had a sense something was deeply wrong, given the background tensions.
It really does underscore that. So before we get right into that day, May 24th, let's talk about Jennifer herself. Who was Jennifer Dulos? Because she wasn't just like a generic suburban mom label.
No, not at all. She came from a prominent, wealthy family in New York,
Mm-hmm.
the Farbers,
Mm-hmm.
involved in publishing. She was educated, had a master's degree in writing from NYU,
Right.
and by all accounts, deeply devoted to her 5 kids. People described her as warm, very generous, quite resilient, too.
And she married Fotis Dulos back in 2004. He was this Greek-born guy building luxury homes.
Yeah, and on the surface, it looked like the dream life.
Yeah.
Like beautiful couple, successful, wealthy, that whole picture-perfect thing.
But that picture started to crack pretty significantly.
It really did. Their marriage began unraveling, and it seemed to happen quite fast, leading up to Jennifer filing for divorce in 2017.
And this wasn't an amicable split. The sources make it clear this was an ugly divorce.
Extremely ugly, and that's where you see Jennifer starting to voice serious concerns. She made some really grave accusations against Fotis in court documents.
Like what specifically?
Things like threatening behavior, psychological manipulation.
Huh.
She even mentioned reckless parenting. She described him as dangerous and unhinged.
Wow.
Particularly, she noted, after he started a relationship with a Michelle Troconis who worked with him.
And those fears she documented, how just were they?
Chillingly direct. There's a quote from one of her court filings that just stops you cold. She wrote, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, "I'm afraid he will retaliate by trying to harm me in some way."
Just puts it right out there.
Exactly. And that documented fear stated so plainly just 2 years before she vanished. It's incredibly significant, isn't it? It really hangs over everything that follows.
Absolutely. A stark warning sign in retrospect. So, okay, let's move to that day. Friday, May 24th, 2019, New Canaan.
Right. As you said, seemed normal. Jennifer drops the kids at school around 8 a.m. That's the last confirmed sighting of her, really.
Then she misses appointments later that day.
2 of them. And that's what raised the initial alarm. Friends knew she wouldn't just flake on commitments like that. It was out of character.
So a friend goes to check on her.
Yeah, gets worried by the silence, drives to Jennifer's house, finds it empty, calls 911.
And that's when the scene in the garage is discovered.
And it's grim. A significant amount of blood. Not just a spot on the floor, on a parked car's door.
Yeah.
Even on trash bins inside the garage.
And DNA tests confirmed it was Jennifer's.
Yes, later confirmed. It left very little doubt that something violent had happened right there in her own home.
Then later that evening, her SUV turns up.
Around 7 p.m. Yeah. Her black Chevy Suburban. Found abandoned at Waveney Park, which is, maybe 3 miles from her house?
Okay. But there was something odd about the car itself, wasn't there?
There was. The driver's seat. It was adjusted way forward, like for someone much shorter than Jennifer. She was about 5'7".
Huh. So, unlikely she was the last person driving it.
That's certainly the implication police drew. It immediately pointed away from her just leaving on her own.
So you've got the missed appointments, the blood in the garage, the abandoned car with the weird seat position.
Right. All adding up very quickly.
And that's why the police pivot so fast, declaring it a homicide investigation, even without, finding her.
Exactly. The working theory became clear almost immediately. Jennifer was attacked violently in her garage, and that her body was removed from the scene.
Okay, so the investigation is now looking for who did this, Where do they turn first?
Well, the spotlight falls almost instantly on Fotis Dulos.
Makes sense, given the history.
Absolutely. That incredibly bitter divorce, the custody battle, Jennifer's documented fears.
Yeah.
He was the immediate person of interest.
And then came the surveillance footage. That seems crucial.
Hugely crucial. Police found footage from Hartford, specifically the Albany Avenue area, from the night Jennifer disappeared. And who does it show?
Fotis and Michelle Troconis.
Fotis and Michelle Troconis, yes. Driving in Fotis's truck. And they're seen making multiple stops at different trash receptacles along the street.
Doing what? Just casually throwing out trash?
Not quite. They're seen discarding several garbage bags, and witnesses, or rather the footage, suggested some of these bags look like they might contain reddish stains, like blood.
Oh, wow. So police recovered those bags.
They managed to recover some of them, yes,
Mhm.
and the contents were damning.
What did they find inside?
A collection of items, clothing, some of it appearing blood-soaked, zip ties, which are always ominous, sponges, gloves, even a bra.
And the DNA.
Tests confirmed Jennifer's DNA was on many of those items.
So items connected to her, discarded by Fotis and Michelle hours after she vanished. That's pretty strong circumstantial evidence.
Extremely strong.
Yeah.
And there was more. Inside Jennifer's house, investigators found Fotis's DNA mixed with hers on the faucet of her kitchen sink.
In her kitchen, why would his DNA be there?
Well, the implication is perhaps cleanup after the attack. It's hard to explain away otherwise, especially mixed with hers like that, on that particular day.
Okay, so putting it all together, what was the police theory of the crime itself?
The prevailing theory became that Fotis ambushed Jennifer in her garage when she returned home that morning, that he attacked her there.
Right.
Then somehow subdued or incapacitated her and likely used her own Suburban to transport her body away from the house.
Dropping the car at the park later?
Exactly. And then, the theory goes, he met up with Michelle Troconis, and they drove to Hartford together that evening to dispose of the evidence, the bloody clothes, the zip ties, the cleaning supplies, and those trash bins, essentially attempting a cover-up.
Makes sense based on the evidence trail, but Fotis and Michelle, they pleaded not guilty.
Both pleaded not guilty to the initial charges, yes. Conspiracy, tampering with evidence, hindering prosecution at first.
And Michelle Troconis' story. You mentioned it was inconsistent.
Yeah, her statements to police reportedly shifted. Initially, she claimed she didn't really know what Fotis was throwing away in those bags in Hartford.
Okay.
But later, reports suggest she indicated she might have known more, or at least suspected, and that she was, quote, afraid of Fotis. That inconsistency didn't help her position.
No, I imagine not. So the case is building. What happens next with Fotis?
Well, the investigation continued, more evidence likely gathered, and then in January 2020, the charges were upgraded significantly. Fotis Dulos was formally charged with murder, felony murder, which relates to a death occurring during another felony like kidnapping and kidnapping.
So facing trial for murder.
Yes, but the trial never happened. Just weeks after being charged while out on bail, Fotis attempted suicide at his home.
Oh, wow.
He was found unresponsive, rushed to the hospital, but died a couple of days later.
And did he leave any explanation?
He did. A handwritten note was found. In it, he insisted he was innocent. Said something like he refused to spend even an hour more in jail for something he had nothing to do with. He blamed the justice system, the media, but maintained his innocence to the end.
So the main suspect is gone. What does that mean for the prosecution?
It's a huge blow, obviously. You lose your primary defendant. But it didn't stop the case entirely. The momentum, as you said, was there.
Because Michelle Troconis was still charged.
Exactly. Her charges included conspiracy to commit murder, meaning she allegedly agreed to and helped plan or cover up the crime, plus hindering prosecution and evidence tampering. Her case is actually still moving through the legal system. The trial is pending.
And wasn't there another person charged? A friend of Fotis?
Yes, Kent Mulwiney. A lawyer, actually, and a friend of Fotis. He was also charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
A lawyer involved. That adds another layer.
It does. And there was another really disturbing, kind of wild twist involving Mulwiney. Police searched a property associated with him.
And found what?
They found what looked like a dugout grave. It was described as shallow, but clearly dug. And nearby, they found things like a tarp and bags of lime.
Lime. Like to decompose a body.
That's often the suspected purpose when lime is found in a situation like this.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very chilling discovery, suggesting possible premeditation or planning related to disposing of a body.
So Troconis and Mulwiney still facing charges. But the central piece, it's still missing, isn't it?
Agonizingly so. Still no body. Jennifer Dulos has never been found.
And her 5 children.
They're being raised by Jennifer's mother, Gloria Farber, in New York. Just an unimaginable situation for them, living with that uncertainty, that void.
It's heartbreaking. So despite all the searches, all the investigation, nothing.
Nothing. Extensive searches have been conducted.
Right.
Woods, parks, properties.
Yeah.
Anywhere Fotis might have gone between New Canaan and Hartford that day and potentially afterwards. But no trace of Jennifer has ever been located.
The belief is Fotis disposed of her remains somewhere along that route.
That's the dominant theory, yes, that he managed to hide her body somewhere and ultimately took the secret of her location to his grave.
It's just profoundly sad. And it really highlights something else too, doesn't it? Beyond the alleged violence of that day.
Absolutely. It brings focus back to the history.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional abuse, the control, the fear that Jennifer apparently endured long before she physically vanished.
The red flags were there. She voiced them.
She did. She sounded the alarm in the court system. And yet, somehow, the system, or perhaps just the circumstances, couldn't prevent what ultimately happened. There's a really troubling aspect of this case.
So technically, because Fotis died before trial and her body hasn't been found, the case isn't fully solved in a legal sense.
Technically, you could say that. It remains open. But, as you said earlier, the circumstantial evidence presented, especially regarding Fotis, is seen by many as incredibly damning. In the court of public opinion, the narrative seems quite clear to most people.
And the pending trials for Michelle Troconis and Kent Mawhinney, is there hope they might shed more light? Maybe reveal where Jennifer is?
That's the lingering hope, however slim. Trials can bring out new details, new testimony. Perhaps someone involved might eventually offer information, maybe as part of a plea deal or simply from conscience, that could finally lead to finding Jennifer. It's what her family and, frankly, everyone following this case desperately wants.
This whole story, it really forces you to think, doesn't it, about how things aren't always what they seem on the surface.
For sure.
How control can easily wear the mask of love or concern. How sometimes immense wealth and privilege don't protect someone, but maybe even camouflage the abuse happening behind closed doors.
Right. And how, tragically, even when someone is crying out for help, pointing to the danger, the system sometimes just fails to connect the dots in time.
Jennifer Dulos deserves to be remembered not just as a victim in a high-profile case, but for the life she lived and the warnings she gave.
Definitely. And it leaves us, and you listening, with some heavy questions to reflect on, I think.
Yeah. Like, do you believe Fotis really acted alone in the physical act? Or did he have direct help beyond the alleged cover-up?
And Michelle Troconis. How much did she truly know? Was she a reluctant participant dragged in by fear or a more willing accomplice? It's hard to be certain from the outside.
And maybe the biggest question, what does this case, playing out in an affluent community, tell us about the hidden realities of domestic conflict that can exist anywhere, often right under our noses, regardless of status or wealth?
Heavy questions indeed. And sadly, for Jennifer's family, the most pressing question remains unanswered. Where is she?